In the meantime, the gravest threat to American safety and civil rights is not white nationalists or domestic extremists, but rather the corrupt Washington leadership that commits whatever crime it wants without ever having to worry about being held accountable. Joining me now is former senior advisor to President Trump and the president of America First Legal, Stephen Miller. Great to have you back. Miller time again. No Bud Light time, Miller time. Stephen, you know, I watched that Christopher Wray hearing yesterday. A lot of obfuscation, a lot of I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. You know, the Republicans held his feet to the fire, most of them held his feet to the fire. All of a sudden, Democrats are they're pals of the FBI. When did this switch happen? What do you think?
That's such a great question. We've seen over time the Democrat Party and the left in this country take over the reins of the administrative state. And so we've obviously always known, well, yes, the left runs the EPA, and the left runs the CDC, and the left runs the Department of Education. But Americans are only just recently beginning to wake up and realize the exact same operation they did on the rest of the federal government, they did on DOJ and they did on FBI. They burrowed their way into these institutions, they took over them from the inside, and then they kept control of these institutions by using the arts of the intelligence community, leaking, misdirecting, manipulation, and actually even implicitly threatening people, i.e. cross us and we're going to ruin you. Cross us and we're going to prosecute you, to maintain control of these institutions. And that's why breaking the back of the deep state at DOJ is going to be one of the most important projects we have in this country.
You think it isn't? Yes, I agree with you 100% there, Steve. But also, as we dig deeper, as Elon Musk bought Twitter, and we found out the FBI was talking to Twitter and other social media groups, and then you find out some of the people from the FBI went to work at Twitter and some of the other social media groups. Are they looking for the big payday? And then let's talk about it. There's John Brennan, there's James Clapper, there's McCabe, there's Strzok. They all end up working for CNNs or MSNBCs once they leave the bureaus.
Well, it's all connected. Your point and my point absolutely make the same point, which is that if you're in the swamp, if you're inside DC, it pays to be a member of the left. So in other words, it's not just that you take over these institutions, it's that then you reward people who think and act and behave like you. You get the cushy network job, you get the cushy Wall Street job, you get the consulting contract, you get to go work in the defense industry. Everybody takes care of everybody else. And what they all have in common is that they are members of the political left-wing establishment. Whereas if you challenge that, if you come in as a conservative renegade, what awaits you? No consulting contracts, no fancy job on NBC or CNN, no big Wall Street payday. What awaits you is getting vilified, getting demonized, and getting canceled and blacklisted.
You make a great point. Wall Street, you know, there are a lot of SEC people that went to work for some of the Wall Street firms. We're wondering why there weren't bigger fines when they were doing all that dirty dealing on Wall Street. Stephen, the media, CNN's Jeff Zeleny, blames your former boss. Listen.
That Republicans are questioning and so sort of anti-law enforcement. It's sort of mind-bending that we are at this point, but we absolutely are. And at every Republican campaign event, every Republican candidate really running for office at any level, there is this skepticism built in of the FBI, of the government, of law enforcement because of Donald Trump.
Your boss's fault.
Talk about blaming victim, Eric. Talk about blaming the victim. Donald Trump has been hounded, harassed, falsely investigated, accused, and now prosecuted by the Department of Justice, right? And this has been going on now since 2016. And so he has led, yes, he has led the effort to question why the Department of Justice has become an arm of the Democratic Party, and to say, which is the most pro-law enforcement thing you could articulate, to say it needs to be returned to its mission of going after gangbangers, drug dealers, criminals, the violent, and those who threaten our national security, and not be used as an instrument to target your political enemies. What could be more pro-law enforcement than that?
Don't know. one of the disturbing things that came out of that, Matt Gaetz was great. He hit him hard. Jim Jordan was great. He went after Ray and trying to hold his feet to the fire. My concern was when Ken Buck, he actually thanked Christopher Wray, and then he went immediately afterwards, went on Jake Tapper on CNN. Take a listen to this.
To target the FBI as punishment is absurd. To say that we're going to cut an agency that performs such a vital function in the United States government is really irresponsible.
Why do you think he did that? What's the motivation there? How about standing in support? I remember the days when Hillary Clinton was in front of a couple of panels, and they held her and they kept her feet to the fire. And all of a sudden, she came out with, "At this point, what difference does it make when we lost four Marines?" And you know, when you hold the witness and you kind of go at it from all directions, this was a bifurcation yesterday for me. You?
I don't think all of the party understands fully the extent to which the weaponization of the DOJ is a mortal threat to our liberty in this country. When you get to the point where you can have rogue prosecutors backed by the awesome power of the state, picking and choosing which conservatives, which Republicans, which candidates to put behind bars. Remember, the power to prosecute is the power to destroy. When you can subpoena somebody, prosecute them, try them, and keep on trying them to take them off the chessboard, then you control the levers of democracy. And when you have an institution that believes that it knows better than the voter, that believes that it knows better than the American people, democracy becomes an illusion. And I fear that not everyone in the Republican Party realizes how grave this threat actually is.
I agree. There's another story. The story came out today that the Secret Service is going to announce that they're about to close whatever investigation they're doing, and this whole idea of the cocaine found in the White House was going to be closed likely without a perp. It concerns me, Stephen. You and I both know Secret Service very, very well. One of probably the most capable, able people in all of law enforcement in America. I find it very hard to believe that they don't know whose cocaine this is in the White House. You spend enough time in there, you know, all the nooks and crannies that they say. What do you think is really going on?
I think what's going on is that Secret Service did not have the license, because remember, they work for the office of the president. The Secret Service is unlike any other law enforcement agency, and that their mission makes them subordinate to, in a very direct way, right, the first family, which is, of course, how it should be. But what it means is that I don't think they had permission. I don't think they had license to do what would need to be done, including drug tests as a bare minimum, to answer the question of whose drugs they were. Or, by the way, to conduct the interviews deeper inside the White House, to conduct the kinds of inquiry that would need to be done to find the answer. So this was fixed from the start. The Secret Service, many of whose members I know to be some of the finest people in the country, the Secret Service never, ever, ever, this was all a sham investigation, never had the ability to run this down to its conclusion.
So now you've seen, so the coke started in the library. It's almost like a game of Clue. Started in the library, went to a cubbyhole. You know, those little areas where you have to leave your cell phone, cameras everywhere, Secret Service, military. Is there any way? The American people are so ticked off. You watch social media, they're pissed because we needed a name. It didn't matter what happened to that person, just needed a name to make sure that the people's house is secure. Stephen Miller, is this just another Biden cover-up?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, no matter what the answer is, it's a massive threat to our national security if you can have banned illicit substances brought with impunity into the inner sanctum of the West Wing, and that it is the position of the Biden White House that we do not know, cannot know, could not ever know who is bringing illegal banned substances inside the West Wing. That is now the position of this White House, that individuals can secretly, covertly bring criminal materials into the White House, contraband of any kind, and we cannot stop them, we cannot prevent them, we cannot identify them. That is madness. And so you have to imagine, using your brain, that that's because the answer of who it belongs to would be a colossal scandal for this administration.
Stephen Miller, Miller time, not Bud Light time, Miller time. Always good having you, Stephen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.